Okay, we have. It's one of our normal FiReStarter slots. 5 companies improving the world. Only today we have 4 companies improving the world. And in no particular order, I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves and pitch. I know we don't pitch. We don't sell here at FiRe, but they're going to do a little bit of selling just for a couple of minutes, just to explain who they are and what they do, starting with Will Perego, the 24-hour solar roof.
Good morning, everyone. Will Perego, founder and CEO of the 24-hour solar roof. Our mission is to provide everyone in the world with affordable, clean electricity and fresh drinking water directly from our roofs. So then no one needs to worry about ever having a blackout again or about not having access to water. We do that by first, the roof is manufactured in modules. Each module is about 7 feet by 40 feet. So the solar panels have built-in batteries. So the batteries provide 24/7 of electricity. And then because panels overheat and underperform, then on the back of the solar panels we circulate cold water so that becomes free hot water, so that reduces the consumption of electricity in the water heater, that by using a different type of air conditioning system that instead of run on electricity, runs on hot water, we reduce about 80% of the consumption of the HVAC system. And then by collecting the rainwater from the roof and by reusing the gray water, and by having an atmospheric water generator, which means that it extracts the humidity from the outside air and runs from the solar panels and produces fresh, pure drinking water. We have all of our water and electric needs covered forever.
And Will, just very briefly, I mean, the point is here, you are selling something, this is primarily in the US now, it's exclusively a US project at the moment, right?
Yeah, well, yes, but
at the moment.
At the moment.
And what you're offering is going to offer solar power through a bespoke kind of a pre-built rooftop installation that will significantly undercut anyone who's putting up a new roof and buying solar panels separately. You reckon you're undercutting the competition, right?
Yeah, what happens is that of the typical rooftop solar installation, the solar panels are just 15% of the total. So the other 85% is wasted. And so we cut most of it. And so it doesn't make any sense to assemble the rooftop solar system on the roof. It's like assembling a car on a roof, right? They don't do that. They assemble the car in the manufacturing plant.
And you're talking about like a 40% cut or reduction on those costs by comparison, potentially.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Cool. Let's skip on. John Heintz, Aptage.
Hi, my name's John Heintz. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Aptage. Aptage has built an AI for projects and management. That is, to predict the outcomes of projects and to give advice to decisions. To take you through part of the story on what that feels like, imagine some project that you have, say, 3 months out, that you care about, you want to be done and done well. If today you knew that that project was at 60% risk of not being done or done well, what would you do differently? What might you want to know next? Those are the types of questions that immediately come to mind. What Aptage then can point you to is understanding what is the source of that risk and what you might do about that risk. Those are some of the basic fundamental characteristics that help us improve the financial and economic success of projects in today. In the course of doing and building this, we've also developed a visual risk language that shows these things. Today in the morning session, we talked and we heard about the ability for these mathematical algorithms to show us things and not find what we hope we find, but find the truth of what's really there. And that's part of what this is. In order for ourselves to interpret these results and these outputs from our own engine, we built visuals that showed what does confidence look like, what does feasibility look like, and what does risk going down look like. At the beginning of a project, every project, there's risk. And that risk is perhaps high for innovative projects, perhaps low for routine projects. Over the course of the project, it should go down for successful projects to zero, and we're done. We've succeeded. As that goes down, we can trace that and watch that as it happens. Halfway through a project that started with 60% risk, it should be under 30% risk. If it's not, that's an indication of something.
How much is this then, the people in themselves in the company atomizing the risk as it goes, as a multi-stage task, and how much is it, smart guys at Aptage stepping in and going, you guys are all idiots. This is how risky this is.
Well, first, we don't say that anybody's an idiot.
Good.
We do
That's a good start.
Yes, we're pretty clear on that. But we do acknowledge that the human mind is not good at doing risk or probabilistic aggregation or assessment. That's not what we're good at. Thinking fast and thinking slow, a takeaway quote from there is that even statisticians are not good intuitive statisticians. So what we're doing is we're building an augment, an extra that helps us process these risks. The types of data is already what we have. It's our own project plans, it's our own task lists, and it's the recent history of the team. What have we actually done yesterday and this week that is part of the special learning that is used in this engine? That's the algorithm that makes those learnings of what we've recently done and reapplies them to our predictions of the future.
Great, we will move on and we will hear more from you in a second, I'm sure. Mark Godsy, Exro Technologies.
Great, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Exro Technologies has a unique proprietary way of making generators and electric motors intelligent. Prior to meeting Exro, I didn't realize, but there were a lot of things that were easily explained because of the limitations of both generators and electric motors. For example, why are wind turbines typically on the ridge of a mountain? Or if you drive by a wind farm, why are many of the wind turbines not operating? Why are we dependent upon gas burning or coal burning facilities to produce electricity, and we can't access tidal power or wave power? Well, the answer is with respect to the limitation of a generator. Generators and electric motors have been around for over 150 years. They're an incredible, elegant invention. Basically, it's a whole bunch of coils with a lot of copper windings on a daisy wheel that spin next to a magnet producing electricity. But what's unique about both generators and electric motors is that they work efficiently at a single speed. If they go too fast or they go too slow, the efficiencies fall off significantly. Equally, motors and generators have one single copper wire. So that's why, in the case of a gas burning or coal burning facility, you need that constant source of power to be able to create that efficiency. And if you're dealing with something variable like wind, it's a big challenge. So in the case of a wind turbine, you've got blades that will yaw because if a gust comes in, you don't want that. It's going to go too fast. Behind the propeller, you've got 3 gears that are constantly changing to try and keep that generator working in the sweet spot. They often break, which is why you see them not operating. And of course, we have no chance with tidal or wave to do anything because there's so much variability.
So what do you, sorry.
So what we do is all those coils are now separated, and we create configurations between them driven by a computer that will constantly configure depending upon both the input or the output, creating that intelligence.
Just to break that down, you're providing what, a kind of software model to?
It's both a software and somewhat hardware. So the coils are all separated, so now they're isolated, whereas currently they're all connected. And then circuits between the various coils driven by a computer program that will reconfigure the generator or the motor depending upon the speed and torque to optimize the efficiency.
And this can be applied where? Literally for any of these installations you've been describing?
It could be applied anywhere. So it will have a huge impact in any variable input, which could be wind or wave or tidal. Now there's a chance to convert that variable energy into electricity efficiently, which previously we couldn't do. In the case of electric vehicles, what we'll be able to do is make a motor more efficient, and then as the vehicle deaccelerates, now as we understand how generators work, you only cross the sweet spot once, so it'll reconfigure itself to be able to capture more energy to allow that vehicle to enjoy greater range.
And briefly, where are your markets right at the moment?
Well, at the moment, we've validated the technology through building 3 prototypes, and we're in the process of commercializing the technology in 3 areas, one in the generator area, one in the motor area, and then in the other, what we call a reversible machine, which would be an electric vehicle, which is a motor, and then as the vehicle deaccelerates or as an elevator starts to come down, it becomes a generator. And so bringing that intelligence to both the production of electricity as well as the consumption of it.
Great. James Ryan, ÉlpisÉremo. Have I pronounced that correctly?
Hello, how are you?
Yeah.
I'm a founder of a company called ÉlpisÉremo, and what we have is a breakthrough in targeting the tissue or modulating of the cell signaling pathways to instruct the tissue-restricted cells to produce the key proteins that are involved in regenerating the body. This is we're entering in a whole new field of regenerative medicine. I was going to share the presentation. So we had this breakthrough. This is, for example, this is one of our co-founders. He found the orchestration of the 2 transcription factors that were involved in the overexpression of genes that were involved in cardiogenesis. So, and then we go to the next slide. Do I do that?
I think perhaps you do.
Okay.
There we go.
So this is how we, this is the natural way that he was able to turn fibroblasts into beating heart cells. I don't know if I could turn that on, the video. And then recognizing patterns of what was happening, what these key transcription factors, this overexpression of certain genes, turned out to be like oscillating a symphony, an orchestration. So then he was able to use that into magnetic fields and change the, those are videos of beating heart cells.
Okay.
Go to the next slide. Oh, and that's the beating heart, and that's using natural chemistry. And the next one using magnetic fields. And change, I don't know how to do this, change the slide. So change the next slide. So, and this is using a radioelectrical conveyed field where he was able to use to modulate the cell signaling pathways and also to produce change to cardiomyocytes using these precise transcription factors in a code. Go ahead.
Next slide, please.
Next slide. Sorry. Okay, and the next slide. And this was able to use different patterns to target different gene expressions. So now we're able to turn on and off gene expression. So we don't have to try to induce to cells by using viral vectors to induce these cells to produce certain proteins so they change characterization and they, for example, become pluripotent. We can now target tissue in place and turn on and off the gene expression and reprogram your cells in place and induce regeneration, meaning that now we're entering in a whole new era of medicine where the beds, where the wearables will become to be able to induce your body to self-heal. So go to the next slide. This was used, this is because this is all done with very, very advanced equipment that previous people had intuition about. Maybe Einstein, Tesla, but basically this very advanced equipment, we're able to pick up the key vibrations of certain proteins. So, and with, go to the next slide. This was the early work, Jim Chigansky, he's a co-founder, that we were able to use the atomic force microscope to pick up all of these oscillatory rhythms of these key patterns of these proteins through this technology. Go to the next slide. Am I up? Oh, no, the next slide. Those are the sounds of the cells. Go, sorry. And this is the resonance. This is the very compelling evidence that we got. This is years ago. And we were able to use these mechanical oscillations. From this point, we had just unprecedented work going forward because, go to the next slide. Oh, this is like, for example, people who had intuition about using oscillating electromagnetic field and what they were trying to do, like this ONC technology from the god Isis for immortality, which we believe now we can start to step towards to controlling the cell fate. We can use cancer now as we can morph cancer. Go to the next slide. Oh, this is a patent. Go to the next slide. And this is us right now. This is the exact song, symphony, orchestration of cardiogenesis of these transcription factors that was we acquired through atomic force microscope. Go ahead, click. This is done very easy, very rapid. So there's a whole symphony of proteins we can control now. And this is opening a whole new time of medicine where we don't need to take cells, isolate cells, expand them, or even what the drug companies do is they modify the DNA of bacteria to produce proteins. We can turn proteins on and off now. Go to the next slide. Oh, this is through hyperspectral imaging. This is like oxidation. We recorded even cell death. We know the sound of death, apoptosis. And what I wanted to show was the song, the cardiogenesis, which is the song.
This was the music we just heard.
No, that's not. That was actually different cells speaking. They're speaking very precise languages too, by the way. There's a cardiogenesis orchestration. This is the new platform, the most advanced platform where we're able to turn morph cells, fibroblast cells, into beating heart cells. I don't have it right there.
I think I take the message, but I want to be fair to the others. So
Okay,
we can just move on. I mean, just essentially what you're selling here, what we're offering, is a wearable, right? A wearable device. And you reckon that this will be available on the market soon? Is this the idea?
Next year, we're working with Hiroshio Pagani. We helped regenerate his knees so he can walk. We have a lot of people. I'm working with the Hilton family for living because we can put it into beds. So the beds, even the future home, will help induce the body to self-heal. Like osteogenesis is
This is
pretty easy.
osteoregeneration, so it's bone regeneration on the whole.
That's one of the programs we have.
Right.
And another one is, of course, neurogenesis, cardiogenesis. We're working on hepatogenesis. So basically what we found is through very advanced equipment, all these people had this intuition about these vibrational signatures of the languages of the universe. We now have key languages, and we could basically manipulate these cells.
There will be an opportunity for questions, and I don't know that we're going to have time for all of them, obviously, in the 10 or 12 minutes we have left. But I just want to kind of re-engage the rest of you and just ask you a little bit about where you've got to. Will, you've been here before. I know you've been here to FiRe. This is obviously, it's a long and often quite painful journey when you're starting out as a CEO. I mean, how have you evolved since we saw you last year? How have things been going for you?
Very well. We are 1 or 2 months away from having the fully functioning demo roof built on a prefabricated home. So then homes can be shipped with a 24-hour solar roof on them.
You're just selling the roof, not the home, though, right?
We sell the roof, but if we can partner with a prefabricated home manufacturer, then the two of us can sell the entire thing.
Well, it's kind of important, isn't it? Because homes come in different sizes.
Yep.
So
And there are different
roofs
home
come in
models.
different sizes, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so that's for homes, and then still the main target is commercial real estate, and we can ship the roof in modules, and in one day the roof is up. It's ready, saves construction time, and by the end of the day, we get electricity and water.
John, a beautiful segue here into sticking with the building theme.
Yes.
You gave a lovely example to me yesterday about how construction projects, particularly those big mega projects, are almost by definition 3 or 4 times over budget by the time that they get delivered. This is because you contend, not just because all construction bosses are con men, but because no, I'm not saying that either. But because there is an inbuilt fallibility. There's something hardwired into our brains, the kind of dumb optimism about our projects, where we just, when they become too complex, we simply hope for the best.
Yeah, hope-based planning. takes over. That's part of the neuropsychology of our human minds not being able to do very easy or good, intuitive, risk-based or probability-based planning. So where we are with the construction projects, we are in conversation with 2 construction companies, one in Dallas and one in the Middle East, that is in talks to pilot to take our technology and apply it to construction projects. And construction projects are interesting in that when things start and when they finish are both very important.
But also, the city administrator is the one who's going to want to hire you, right? I mean, or whoever the paymaster is, he's going to be saying, I'm going to use you as a consultant to make sure that these guys aren't lying to me.
I think you have an excellent idea. One of the examples that we can go back to is the Big Dig in Boston. Originally, the adjusted price for that was $6 billion, and today the latest is over $24 billion in total costs, and they're still paying the debts on that. Many contributors to that, but one of the key contributors to that was project management not knowing soon enough that things were going off track and having a chance to deal with it and acknowledge it. The total economic impact of all of these types of failures in the software industry alone is at least $110 billion in sunk costs on software teams building things that don't go anywhere. The things that we're doing today and the things that we're looking for today include customers and project and city administrators that are interested in doing this, partnering with construction companies, software development groups, we've got a system integrator in South America that is a revenue client for us. We're also seeking investment, and if anybody has experience in doing business in the Middle East, that would probably be very helpful for us soon.
Any questions, guys? Remember, mics, just step on up and I'll wave at you. Mark, tell me more about where this is going. You mentioned cars and automobiles. I mean, do you think the most natural fit for what you're doing, or are you imagining yourself stuck out in some gigantic wind farm in the Rockies?
I think, excuse me, I think we have a natural fit pretty much everywhere. We're agnostic, and if you were to get up into a satellite and look down at the planet and look at all the generators that could be helped with our technology, or all the variable motors, or sites, for example, that have variability, whether it's wind or whatever, and if we were to attach a red dot to those, our mission really is to turn those red dots into green dots. And our technology resides within a motor or a generator, so it's an integrated technology, and then broadly integrated into a larger ecosystem. So our mission is really to make generators and electric motors, which we don't see, we can hear, they're everywhere, intelligent. And they're an elegant, fantastic invention, but they now have an opportunity to be intelligent, which will have a big impact, we believe, on the world. Environmentally, it'll help, excuse me, help reduce the political tension around energy, which exists, and then, of course, have an impact on our pocketbook to the extent that products and services have an energy component, and if that can be reduced, it'll be helpful to everybody.
Yes, sir?
Thank you.
Question for X-ray. Not all motion is rotary. Will your system work in linear systems?
Sorry, I'm not sure I heard the question.
Not all motion is rotary, and I'm wondering whether your technology will work in linear systems.
Not quite sure what you mean by a linear system. Linear motors. It should work in linear. Well, linear motors, if the performance is going to be same, if the car is going to be going 60 miles an hour, it's going to have little impact. Really, where it shines is in variability. I'm not sure if that answers the question.
Not quite, but I might catch up with you later.
Okay. You might want to speak to our founder, who's technical. Thank you.
Do your machines, your generators, can you adapt them to things, or do you need to install new generators? Can you adapt a generator to, say, an elevator, or to a subway, or to a hybrid bus? Where do you stand in trying to adapt your technology to existing
See, that's a great question as well. In the case of wind farms, for example, it's an enormous market, about $100 billion a year, grossly inefficient, okay, but inefficient. and about $1 trillion worth of current wind assets that are out there. What we'll be able to do is very simply just clip the leads on the end of the coils, creating isolated coils, adding our wired configurations, and then driven by a computer system. So yes, we'll be able to integrate our technology into existing systems. There's no change in terms of the form factor for either a generator or a motor, which again speaks to sort of I think the elegance in terms of the solution. Our business is very relationship oriented, I think like everyone else here. In a way, we're weaving a thread into a carpet, other people's carpets, and we're enabling these machines to be intelligent. But we have application in all of those areas that you described.
Yes, sir.
Yes, for each of you, the 24-hour roof, have you had any interactions or learned anything from Dean Kamen's systems that he's working with Coca-Cola on to be able to do solar roofs that also purify water and are being distributed through Africa?
Dean's is I don't think that his is atmospheric generation. In his case,
purifying out of dirty sources near the solar power. So it's using the power to do it, whereas you're integrating them.
Correct. In our case, there are financial models for developed countries and developing countries where there is no upfront costs. Here, as an example, in the US, what you would pay today for your utilities, for electricity and water, that would be similar to what you would pay to finance the 24-hour solar roof. In developing countries, there are pay-as-you-go models. So as an example, a small village with 500 families, we can build a community center for them. Currently, they may have to travel every day or every other day 5 miles to the next town to pay 25 cents to recharge their cell phones or to buy a bottle of water. Now they have everything in their community, and that same payment would now go to repay for the community center. Did I answer the question?
Yes, and I'd like to talk more. Regarding the motors, though, we had the great breakthrough about 20 years ago in the rare earth motors that resulted in this whole electric car revolution. And the rare earths are, of course, the markets being cornered and people driven out of the rare earth markets. Are your motors and generators still dependent upon the same supply chain that's China dominated?
Well, that would be a question more for motors or generators. Again, we enable generators and motors to become intelligent. So there are breakthroughs in terms of materials. I know Mark is very focused on graphene, and there's work in terms of developing graphene component motors and generators. The benefit of our technology is it's really synergistic with any developments within a motor or generator. So to the extent that there are any improvements, we can work in a very symbiotic way. One other point I wanted to mention, which I didn't mention earlier, is the ability to harness energy is going to now change. People will be able to redesign wind turbines. So the design right now is completely based upon the limitations of the generator, but people will be able to develop new ways to capture energy, be it in air or wind or waves or tidal, and that's very exciting.
I hope also to talk to you about the beaming microwaves, because I think Elon Musk might want the technology.
Final, we only have a minute left. James, I just wanted to bring you in one last time. Who is backing you, and where? This is obviously, the vision is gigantic.
Yeah,
but where are you coming from? What's the financial clout behind you?
My wife and I have pioneered the regenerative medicine stem cells going back nearly 20 years, because my son, we saved his life in 1998 from experimental stem cell therapy. But in our experience of pioneering work, and we recognize the drastic limitations of just growing cells or injecting cells into a region that has very little precise regenerative language going on in there. So that's why we were focused on inducing the body to produce these powerful proteins. And we just got extremely lucky with Number one, finding the great scientists, which is extremely difficult, you know. And so that was a miracle. And then getting the data from October 2015 was just so shocking. And then retesting. And it was from that point, though, my wife and I and the co-founders are the key backers. So including some of the Hilton family members. So that's where we're headed. So that's the motivation. Is my son now is back on a life support machine and he's running out of time. So we know stem cells weren't going to work. So we had to make the technology that doesn't exist or didn't exist, so we can now have the hospital beds regenerative, which Dr. Hood correctly stated yesterday. The hospitals, they're just waiting death. You know, they're not getting, if they're not improving, they're dying. They're putting themselves at risk. We know now that the hospital beds can target the ratchets and produce these proteins without any drug company intervening. Sorry.
It's exciting technology. We're going to have to talk about it more in breaks, I guess. Thank you very much, my four
Great.
FiReStarters. Thank
Great,
you for
thank you.
listening.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.